Hey, I'm Sarah from Eat, Think, Explore, and I'm here at the ACE Monmouth Climate Festival to talk to you today about how your food choices can help you to be happier, healthier and reduce your impact on the planet. Now, I think most of us are aware that the food that we eat can have a real impact on our physical health. I think we're generally less aware that it can have a real impact on our mental health as well. And I think it's not new news. It's been in the news a lot about how the food that we eat can affect the environment, particularly around the way that cows create greenhouse gases and are generally being blamed for global warming. So what I really love about this is that one decision that we make can have a beneficial impact on both on our physical health, on our mental health, and on the environment all at the same time. So I feel like if you're looking to make a change in life, to try and do something to improve on these aspects, that food is a really great place to start because it does all three in one go. Now, the people that asked me to come and do this talk thought you might be interested to hear a bit about my story and why I'm here and why I do this. So here's me at 15. I'll start there because it's kind of relevant. I was really shy science geek at the time, very into science and animals, and I was not a very particularly healthy teenager at all. I had not been able to breathe through my nose since I was about 12. I'd been on steroids for that and for my asthma since I was about 12. I couldn't run more than 100 metres without my asthma flaring up. I had already by then pretty dry skin. I had the skin condition, and I used to get stomach cramps, and I would get a cold, at least 3 colds every winter, and they'd always end up in like a sort of 6 weeks hacking cough. So I was not a healthy person at that time, and back then I wasn't eating well either. I was a really fussy eater as a kid. I really ate mostly only beige foods willingly. I would pretty much gag on most vegetables that they tried to get me to eat as a kid. I would only eat the classics, your broccoli, peas, carrots, sweet corn and beetroot, which is a bit random, but I love beetroot. And yeah, I was not a happy eater at this point, and I was not eating well. So I carried on through school, and I got my graduating first class degree in biology from Cardiff University. I fell into working for a graduate programme for the Big Four accountancy firm. Studied for 3 years, got my ACA qualification, working sort of 70+ hour weeks, and just generally carried on in that whole world of corporate finance. I got married, got a house, had some kids, pretty close together, and it was at that point that my health really deteriorated. I think the stress at home, the kids, the hormonal turmoil that does to you. But at this point I really started having, I pretty much get a new condition every single year. It became a bit of a running joke, although it wasn't a very funny one. That I would constantly go to the doctor. I'd come home with a new illness. I had this big medicine box, and I'd just come home, put another prescription medication into there, and mounting it up and up and up. So here's me at 28, where I guess this is when, I don't know, maybe the final straw that broke the camel's back. Here's me with guttate psoriasis. This is my 3rd or 4th outbreak in 4 years. It lasts 6 months. It's like 80% of my body in horrible, shedding, itchy, painful, sore things. I'd had methotrexate. I'd had regular sunburning 3 times a week, all over body, which is obviously great fun. And I'd got to the point where I was so desperate I was trying things like acupuncture. So this was an experimental acupuncture they were trying for the first time, with needles literally this big, going all the way through my thigh muscle down to the bone. So that was actually not as bad as it sounds, but that's how desperate I got. At this point, I had at least 6 skin conditions. I had asthma, rhinitis, laryngitis, multiple allergies, including alcohol, randomly. My gut was not happy, stomach cramps, IBS and things. I had unexplained anemia. I ended up with depression and irritability and fatigue, and whilst none of those are, obviously people are much sicker than me and have much worse things than that, but the combination of all of them, and just knowing that it was just getting worse and worse and worse, and here I was at 30 thinking, yikes, at this rate by 40 I'm not going to function really anymore. I'm struggling to function well, and by 40 I just think I'm going to be a total wreck. And I also thought there's so many things here, like it's not like I have one thing, I have so many of my systems just don't seem to work. That can't be, that can't just be that I have all these broken systems, there must be something underneath, there must be some underlying root cause why all this doesn't work. So I kind of went back to put my science hat back on, went back to my biology degree, got researching, and I found the answer, and that was chronic inflammation. So back 10 years ago this was not really a very known, talked about thing at all. Now it's becoming quite known in the sort of, not in the sort of GP world, they're always a bit behind, but it affects, it's something that I could talk for ages about chronic inflammation. I have more information on my website if you think this might be you, but it's a real issue that a huge amount of people in the Western world have. It's caused by our diets and our lifestyles. It can affect any of your body systems and it can cause a huge range of symptoms, and it's been linked to things like Alzheimer's and heart disease and some cancers, and so many of these conditions that are growing in number, really taking off in number right now, have been linked back to chronic inflammation. So once I realised this was my problem, and it was diet and lifestyle, I had to face the facts that I had to change what I was eating, and for me that was not an easy thing to accept. I loved food by this point, mainly because probably I wasn't living at home and I didn't have someone trying to force me to eat vegetables, but I wasn't eating many vegetables at all. Very much it was beige food, it was meat and carbs, a lot of processed stuff, a lot of Coke, a lot of ready meals, a lot of chocolate. I was not eating well, so I had to sort of switch my diet from this very processed beige diet and try and move it to one that was gonna really lower my inflammation and help me to be healthy, because at this point I was like, I need to be healthy. And that took a long time, and it certainly didn't do it overnight. It took years, and I had been trying on and off for the 10 years before this, but like we all are, we're all always sort of trying to eat healthy. Stop buying the crud, eat it all up or whatever. On Monday I'm going to be uber healthy. This is it. Stick to it, like, religiously for a week or so, and then something happens, bam, you're back to square one. I did that for years, and it took a long time to shift, but I have entirely now, and I love vegetables, and I eat a load of vegetables. I mean, we aim for 7 to 12 portions of fruit and veg a day, rather than the 5. And yeah, I actually miss it. Like if I don't have them, I miss them. I'm like, where are my vegetables? I love them. And if you want to know more, that's not the subject of this talk, how I managed that change, but I can definitely help you with that and share more information on that. There's more on my website, so go find me talking about that. And while this was all happening, because this has spanned many years, I was getting increasingly, I guess, falling out of love with working in the corporate world. It wasn't fitting with me very well anymore, and I was also getting more eco-aware, so I was becoming much more, I really wanted to reduce my impact, to do more, but I didn't have time. It was always my thing, I just did not have time. I was still busy with young kids. But I think at some point I felt like being able to make the change, just to shift our entire diet, gave us this feeling of that we could actually, if there's something that wasn't working in our lives, that we could change that. It was very empowering. And I think that's what kind of paved the way and opened the door for us actually going, well, you know what, we really want to travel, let's do it. And so we quit our job in 2019, took the kids travelling around the world for a year. Only got 7 months because of COVID, but 7 amazing months. And I've got a few snaps here just showing you a little bit of the places we ate, and the kids happily jumping on bugs. They eat anything, and again, I have posts and stuff, and I could talk to anyone about how I did that, but that's not for this talk. So here's the kids eating bugs, crickets. They're actually really nice. There's a big bug at the bottom there. I ate that, and I had a bite of that, which would never have happened 10-15 years ago, so I was very proud of myself. The kids ate it as well. I had to eat it because they had. So that was really great, totally recommend that. But as part of this as well, so we travelled, then I learned a lot about, I got a lot of nutrition diplomas, mostly initially to heal myself, but then when it was really working, I thought I need to share this. So then I started my own business. That's when I started Eat, Think, Explore to spread the word about chronic inflammation and to share nutrition as well. But it's also combined with all the having more time and being able to do more, being more eco-friendly. And I realised that actually the way we eat can be good for us and the environment. There's a big overlap. So that sort of switched onto that. And then I've discovered regenerative agriculture. And because I could this year, I decided to walk 1,500 miles to raise awareness and money for Regeneration International. So I'm doing that. So I'd like to take the moment just to talk to you about regenerative agriculture, because it's kind of crazy how it could, if we can get this right, if we can do this, we can fix pretty much all of our major problems around the world. So regenerative agriculture is a way of farming that provides more nutritious foods and reduces human disease, therefore. It improves biodiversity, so it gives wildlife a home. It's going to improve our global food system stability. So it's going to enable us to be much more resilient to these droughts and floods, etc., and to keep producing food for everyone. And it can also reverse global warming, not just slow down or stop, reverse if we can make it happen. It has that power and that potential. So specifically we're talking, it's a climate festival that this talk is for, so I want to focus on that bottom one about what regenerative agriculture and healthy soils can do for our climate. So we're generally mostly aware of the fact that trees pull down carbon from the air, combine it with the carbon dioxide combined with the sunlight, or using the sunlight to produce the sugars. Those sugars are used by the tree, they're very carbon rich, they're used by the tree to grow, to produce new leaves, to produce new browse. And that is how a tree stores carbon. That's why it's so important that we maintain a forest cover around the world, because there's a big store there. But there's a bigger story to that as well, that is that also some of these sugars are being passed down into the roots of the tree and exuded out into the soil around them. And there's almost this underground trading system where there's a network of mycorrhizal fungi, there's other microbiota, bacteria, protozoa, etc. And they're all working in there. They're taking and using these sugars. And they're actually, this is really quite new area of science, and we don't fully understand it all yet. But they believe that these fungi networks and these bacteria actually take this sugar and they will actually exchange it, or they give minerals and vitamins back to the plants to help them grow. So that's really brilliant, and that carbon goes down. Some of it's exuded, some of it sits in the soil, some of it literally grows more life in the soil, so that's another load of carbon, and then that life exudes carbon in the form of waste as well. So that's how we get this carbon build up. That's one part of how we get this carbon build up in the soil. But also every time that tree then sheds leaves, browse, or dies, any plant, this isn't just trees, it's plants, that carbon that's broken down, and that carbon sits in the soil. So over time we've built up these very carbon rich soils, and which is quite often why we like to chop the trees down and use the soil that's there, because it's initially very good quality soil. So when we think about soils, if you were to go in your garden, generally speaking, and dig in one of your flower beds, if you were to go into the woods and scratch around at the bottom of a tree, if you were to open a bag of compost, it'll be dark, really nice, dark, rich, dark brown. And that's kind of how we think of soil, because that's how we're used to seeing it. But if you've ever noticed, when you drive past a farm, a field that's recently ploughed, that land is often a very different colour. It's very rarely this rich, dark brown. It's much more like this field on the left. And that's because that field has lost most of its organic matter. That carbon has gone, that has been released, that's up in the atmosphere somewhere. The soil is not storing huge amounts of carbon. And we estimate that, I wasn't part of that. It's estimated that about a third of our topsoils have been lost already since the 70s, because of the way that we farm now. So there's a few things with this that regenerative agriculture really needs to do, or aims to do, to kind of maintain soil health, right? So that's keeping the soil covered. Think of it like being having a conservatory. Really hot days in the summer, really cold days in the winter. It's horrible. You don't want to be there, and that's what it's like for all that wildlife in the soils. When they're exposed to the sun, exposed to the frost, they don't like it. They die. They can't live in those extremes. So we're killing the life in the soils when we do that. They want this nice cover, they want to be sitting effectively, they want some blinds, or they want to sit in a house during these extreme weather conditions. We're talking about having animals sort of managed grazing, so mob grazing, effectively just coming over, kind of giving it a trim, and importantly depositing some poop on the ground, which is full of a load of that bacteria from their guts, which is like us taking a probiotic, and what it does to our gut microbiome, it really increases, we're doing that to get more bacteria, and there are different varieties in there because that's what's good for us, and it's the same thing to the soil, so it's like inoculating the soil with a load of new bacteria. So that's really great for improving life. Crop rotation to make sure that we're not exhausting the soils. Composting to keep that organic matter going back in again. Unfortunately with farming, we chop it off, we take it away and we eat it, that carbon, unlike in a woodland where the tree's growing and then it sheds and it goes in a cycle, we've broken that cycle. So we need to so it's all about trying to put that organic matter back into the soil, and not ploughing. So every time we come through and they plough, most of the life lives in the top 4 inches of the soil. So when we're ploughing, we're turning over a much bigger bit. So we're literally taking that life and we're sticking it about a foot below the ground where there's no oxygen and it can't live, it dies. So effectively we kind of kill the soils, all the soil life every time we plough. So combined with that and the exposure and the overuse of the same crop, and then putting pesticides on which kill life as well, we're basically killing all this life in our soils, and we've removed the ability of all that life to store down carbon, to create good soil structure. So they create little pockets in the soil that holds it all together. So when you lose that soil life, then all that carbon in the soils can just get washed away so easily, and that's how we end up with these unhealthy soils. So hopefully that was at least vaguely interesting. So that's just a topic I'm really passionate about, and I think it's really important that this becomes the norm, that this becomes the way of farming, and it's really exciting that it's growing very fast in the farming community. There's not a lot that you as a consumer can do right now apart from be aware and be ready, and maybe start to be asking, if you're at a farmer's market, if you're having a conversation with farmers, if you have the opportunity to find out where food is from, be asking them questions. Are you doing anything regenerative? Are you using cover crops? Do you use mob grazing? Are you rotating? Do you plough, or are you using drills? So that's why this is so important. Thank you for listening to that. I'll get on to the main content now, which is about how your food choices can help you to be happier, healthier, and reduce your impact on the planet. Now, you make so many choices with your food every day, and you can't switch all of those to the best one in overnight. We need to do things piecemeal. We need to do things in a manageable way. And often you'll hear some of the common ones are often organic, local, seasonal, and I'm sure you've heard those ones. Also, they tend to cost more. So I wanted to just keep the ones I'm going to suggest today to be ones that actually don't have to cost you more, may even save you money. So I'm just going to talk about 5 actionable steps that you can start taking, changes that you can start making that are going to really help your body and the planet. So first one is eating a greater variety of foods. Now, your body needs a lot of nutrients. There's so many different processes going on in it. It's like making a cake. All these processes can sort of manage with some weird kind of, when you're just like, oh quite, I haven't got that, I'll use this instead. Sometimes it can manage, sometimes it can't. If you put the right ingredients in, you're going to get the best. So it's a really great way, eating a wide variety, to get to try and make sure that you're getting all these different vitamins and minerals. It means less monocultures. So a monoculture is where they're just growing the same thing, just huge fields year after year. And they actually think that 70% of all of the food eaten around the world comes from just 3 crops. You won't be surprised if one of them is wheat. In the Western world, we quite often would have wheat for breakfast with some cereals, we might have wheat for lunch with sandwiches, and we could even be having wheat for pasta for dinner, and probably some wheat snacks as cakes and biscuits in the middle. We eat a lot of wheat, and that is really not ideal for ourselves, from the point of wildlife and monocultures. A monoculture, you imagine this field after field of the same thing. It's a very limited choice for wildlife. It's really bad for your soils because they're just those plants are taking the same thing and the same thing again and again, and not giving the same things back, but not what that plant needs. So you're leading to quite nutrient imbalanced soils, and that means less nutrients in the food for us as well. And when you have big areas of the same thing, if you get a pest or a disease in there, they can just charge right through. And they can also sit and they'll wait for you to grow it again next year and just come back out. So it's much easier for disease and pest to spread, which means we then end up needing to use more pesticides and more fertilisers because the soils aren't as good. So monocultures, not great. The other great thing about variety is, talked about your gut microbiome. Imagine that you've got all these different bacteria, so many different types of bacteria you could have in your gut, and they all have a different favourite food. They're all something that they really like to chow down on. If you just keep eating the same thing, you're just helping certain types, and they're going to grow more, and you're going to have really small populations of the rest. And that means you're not going to get the full benefit of all of the different products and chemicals and compounds that these bacteria make and these things that they do for you. Whereas if you're feeding lots of these different populations, constantly putting different things in and helping loads of these guys, they're all going to be producing the things that you want and need them to produce. Even just 1 teaspoon, they reckon, of a new food can change increase the population of a certain bacteria. So it's really quite quick to change that composition. It's really effective. You should notice it's pretty quick. So to do this, it's quite simple, really. Just rather than just constantly going for the same foods that you know, pick something different. If you see a different fruit, a different vegetable, try and have a go with it. Go home, because we don't want food waste, and we don't want to keep buying all the crazy tropical things that are coming from the other side of the world. That's not really helpful either. But as we go through the seasons, we get different fruits and vegetables from the UK and from close around in Europe. And if you don't know what it is, go home and Google it, find a recipe, and then buy it the next week or something. It's just trying to looking for these new things and thinking, I'm going to try that. And it's not just about fruit and veg. So with fruit and veg, trying to eat all the different colours particularly, because each colour generally indicates a different type of nutrients. But it's also it's like thinking about trying to eat as many plants as possible. So all the different grains, beans and legumes or lentils, there's lots of different types of those. That's a great way to get variety. Try your bulgur wheats and quinoas, and even if you get them in the supermarkets. If you get excitable, you can try things like freekeh and farro, and there's so many grains. Loads of different types of lentils, loads of beans. And herbs and spices count too. They are all different individual plants. So try varying up. If you always sort of season with the same thing, try some different herbs and spices. Give them a go. And just get that variety. So meat, obviously a classic one to talk about when you're trying to be more eco-friendly with your food. I'm not going to touch on it too much because that comes up a lot, but swapping some for beans and lentils, I think it's generally accepted that it takes less land per calorie to grow beans and lentils than it does and plant foods than it does to grow animals. That's just the whole food pyramid, sort of school biology thing. They're also, if you're just eating these and you're not really taking much of the beans and lentils, you're missing out on this whole area of variety and getting all these different nutrients from the beans and lentils. They have a lot of good fibre in them, really great prebiotics for feeding your gut microbiome. They're also cheaper, and so a can of organic chickpeas even is about £1.20. So you can really this is a great way to save some money actually. And if you can get organic chickpeas, you certainly can't get organic meat for anything like that price. If you're getting meat for that sort of price, you're talking about really cheap, pumped with water, grown with hormones, full of antibiotics, kind of meat. It's not the best meat for you. So start with just swapping maybe one meal a week. You're unlikely to, if you really like meat, you're unlikely to just be able to just ditch it entirely and not. And I'm not saying you have to ditch it entirely. Part of regenerative is meat, but we need to massively reduce the amount that we consume. So start with one swap a week and build up. Okay, switch. The key point I want to make out of all this really is don't switch for these really processed meat alternatives. They are generally really not good for you. And take the opportunity to switch to real food alternatives like beans and mushrooms and lentils. Okay, rather than a lot of these, not all the alternatives, some of them do. You can check the back of the packet and see what the general list of ingredients are. If it seems like quite reasonable food, some of them are fine. Some of them are full of chemicals, highly soy based, and then they're really not good for you. So next one's eating fewer processed foods. Again, we all know we should be eating less cakes, biscuits, and that sort of thing. Mainly because we know they're not good for us, so they're full of unhealthy fats, salt, sugars. They contain palm oil, which is really linked to deforestation. But the other thing to think about with these things, like these really angry looking little cookie guys, they are very well travelled. The likelihood is that maybe 6, maybe more main ingredients in there have come from numerous different countries themselves to a factory. They've been processed some of the way that all the flours, the sugars, they're very processed versions of them of these ingredients because they want them to last forever. And when you think about it, food that lasts forever is, well, nothing else wants to live on it or eat it, so clearly it's not very good, is it? Then they've been processed themselves to be made, and then they've been packaged, and then they get shipped to, because they're quite often made in one factory, they get shipped off to where you are, shipped to your house. So they've got a big carbon footprint. They've travelled a long way, and they're quite often had quite a lot of other side chemicals and machinery involved in their production. So really an energy and chemical intensive little guys, these angry cookies. So there's a lot of reasons to not eat them. It's not always as simple. I know we eat them for partly for taste, but also for convenience, because we're out and about and we don't have too many choices. You're out and you're hungry, or you go in the newsagent, that it's all processed, apart from getting an apple or a banana. So one of the keys to reducing these is to be a bit better prepared, so taking food with you, and some of that is just finding some of these processed foods that are maybe a little bit better for you, some slightly more responsible brands. But the really good thing to do is to take this opportunity to just do a little bit of home baking, and I'm not talking about doing crazy things, mixing up some ingredients with some honey, sticking them in a tray and sticking them in the oven for 10 minutes. It doesn't require you to be a master chef. It doesn't take very long. Cookies, you can make cookies in 20 minutes. You literally stuff the stuff in a bowl, mix it up, dollop them on a tray, stick them in the oven for 10 minutes, and you've got cookies. And they can still taste nice, but you have so much more control over what's in them and where that's come from. So that's good ways to use less processed foods. Batch cook. So if you're someone who does a lot of ready meals, if you do cook at home, try and cook a double batch of it. A lot of things can be frozen or kept even for just 2 nights later, particularly if you know there's normally a night that week that you're not going to want to cook, or if it just, often things get in the way, or you just, you hate cooking and you have to have an easy night. When you batch cook, it doesn't take twice as long to cook twice as much food, so it's more efficient. And yeah, generally going for foods with less ingredients is a good way to tell that it's less processed. So the next one is steaming rather than frying foods. So generally when we fry, most of us are frying with a very cheap and very ultra processed omega-6 rich oil. So oils that are high in omega-6 are very inflammatory and are really not good for us. And the way they're processed, a lot of them, there's some quite nasty chemicals involved. So generally water should be better than that in terms of energy and definitely in terms of health. When you steam it, or steamer itself, you can cook 3 different baskets of food. So it can be really nice if there's just one of you. It feels like you're not having 3 pans on the go trying to cook some rice, some fish and some vegetables up. It can all be done in one, with just literally one blast of energy. It takes the same amount of energy to steam 1 basket as it does to 3. So that can really help you to save, particularly if you're cooking on gas, save some, and if you are on a renewable energy electricity tariff, then that can really help you to use more renewable energy and use less energy, hopefully, so that should save you some money potentially. Steaming also preserves the nutrients in foods better. So when you're boiling vegetables, there's a lot of water-soluble vitamins, and they just go into the water and you tip them down the sink. So that's a lot of wasted goodness. So that doesn't happen so much with steaming. And also when you fry, you're not only using the oils, you can burn the foods, and burnt foods create oxidants, which are free radicals, like think of them like little, I don't know, like looters running around your body smashing stuff. That's why we always hear this word about antioxidants, because they stop those. So burnt food has a lot of these free radicals in it that are just going to go around causing damage in your body. So that's another good reason to avoid frying stuff, certainly trying not to burn stuff. You can't burn with steaming, it's great. You can just put it on, press the button and walk off. It's a very, very easy way of cooking. I love it. And healthier. And all you need to do with this is just to get a steamer. They're £20 to £30 for a steamer. If you can get the metal pans as well that sit on top of a saucepan, but I don't like them as much because they can boil over with the water, or not, run out of water. And if you're cooking on gas, you're not using the benefit of renewable energy. If you really can't stretch to getting a new steamer, the next best thing is to steam fry. So use a bit less oil in your pan, and then when you put the vegetables in, or whatever you're steaming, just put a few tablespoons of water in, put the lid on, and that creates a steamy environment inside with the vegetables, so it partially steams them, so you don't have to fry them as much. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is meal planning. So planning your meals can really help you reduce waste, because the things that you buy have a plan, you know what they're going in. When we were first started to eat more vegetables, we didn't meal plan, so we would pick up vegetables from the shops with the intention of eating them, but because we didn't know what meal they were going in, they would oftentimes, or we didn't plan to cook them before they were going to go off, they would oftentimes get thrown away, and we threw a lot of vegetables away in the early days, and I hated that. Wasted money and wasted resources, not good. So when you're planning meals, you're thinking with your much more logical willpower part of your brain, and so you're going to make better decisions. You're going to think, okay, you're going to be able to plan some healthy meals, some good meals in. When you are faced in the evening with that decision of what do I do now, you're thinking much more with the instinctive part of your brain, with this instant gratification part of your brain. And it's going to go for the easy option. That's what it wants. What's going to solve this problem now? It's going to make me happy right now. So it's going to be very hard to keep your cortex involved and actually use. That's why we talk about not having willpower. It's very hard to sort of stand to your ground and go, no, I'm eating healthy. I'm going to cook this new thing that I came up with that I'm going to find. It's too harsh. You're going to pick the easy option. You're going to go for a freezer dinner probably. So planning meals also means you've got much more opportunity to think of different meals, to go through recipe books, to come up with something different. So you're going to get a much better variety of foods. And it's so much less stressful when you know what the meal plan is every evening, when your son, your kids are like, oh, what, or whoever, what's for dinner tonight? And you're like, oh, I don't know. And you suddenly, or you've been working all day and you come and you think, oh God, I have to cook something. People are hungry, I need to make something. Oh gosh, what shall I do? That's just, you don't need that. We don't need that stress. So my top tips are, because it should be an easy process, but there's so many stumbling points around meal planning. It should be as simple as getting a book and a piece of paper and a pen, thinking of some meals and writing them down and then following it through, but it never works quite like that, does it? Life is too varied for that. So my advice is to start small. Just don't plan all your meals in for next week, just do one or two. If that works and feels easy, add another one in and build that way. Otherwise you're going to try it, probably fail, because if you could go from nothing to planning all your meals in and succeed and follow it through, then super kudos and wow, you're amazing. But it's very unlikely that that's going to happen, and then you'll be like, oh, this doesn't work, so you'll just ditch it. So start small. My biggest stumbling block when I first started was that I would come up with a plan, buy all the stuff, and then lose the plan, or not be able to find the recipes that I had planned for because I'd just been online, found a recipe somewhere, couldn't really find it. And so I didn't know what to do with those vegetables, didn't know what to do with those ingredients, stuff went off. It's really frustrating when you put the effort in. So come up with somewhere good and safe to store them. I use Outlook, works a treat for me. So I'm making time. So it feels like it's not a fun task, is it? Who enjoys sitting down to meal plan? But it is actually, once you can do it, it's more efficient than trying to think up stuff every night, popping down the shops all the time. It is a lot more efficient. So it's about convincing yourself of that and trying to make time for it and prioritise it. So I feel like this is almost more of a tool for kind of doing all of the other changes, because so many of your food choices are better if you're thinking about them in advance. And I feel like if you don't meal plan or you can't meal plan, you're going to really struggle to ever change the way that you eat. So, you know, it's just going to, I don't see how you can really do it. So, because it's difficult and it took me years to get meal planning nailed, but I did, and I have a process that I kind of rigorously follow each week that builds me a flexible meal plan. I can change it, I can move it around, you know, stuff's always happening, and I can do it with a variety of recipes, you know, new things planned in, fits around everything that we're doing, and I can do that. I can pull that together for the whole week for the 4 of us and do the order itself in about an hour. So I've bottled all that up into a process, and I have made a course on it to really help you to master it. So it's a really practical, active course, rather than me just telling you stuff and then you never doing anything about it, to really help you master meal planning. So that's on my website as well, along with the full guide of all 10 actionable steps. What we covered today, but there's more steps in there, and also there's a lot more of the how stuff, so you can really do it, to really help you do it. It's all on the website, on the resources section, so pop over there. So there's stuff in there about chronic inflammation, about how to get yourself and your kids to eat better. I'm pretty much almost a charity now, really, in that I don't really do this for profit. I'm still a child accountant that pays the bills. So nothing's particularly pricey. There's a lot of free stuff. So go check that out. I hope this was helpful to you. Thank you for giving me your time, and if you have any questions, then please just pop them in the comments below the video, or come to my website and find the contact me page, so you can email me or book in one of the free calls with me, and we can, happy for you to just pick my brains for half an hour and we can just chat about this, because it's so vitally important. So thank you, I hope that helped, and I hope to see you again soon.